In a town where roofs leaned toward each other like people sharing secrets, there lived a clockmaker named Elias. His shop smelled of oil, brass, and patience. Gears lay on velvet like tiny silver moons. Customers came when their lives began to wobble, when minutes slipped sideways, when a watch stopped as if it had lost the will to continue. Elias did not believe time could be owned. He believed it could be tended, the way a gardener tends a stubborn vine. He wound springs and spoke softly to mechanisms, as if coaxing was more honest than commanding. One winter evening, a woman entered with a pocket watch that ticked too fast. Its hands hurried like a person late for a debt. She set it on the counter and said, "Make it honest." Elias opened the case. Inside, the movement was clean, almost smug. He listened with a brass earpiece. The tick was eager, not broken. He asked the woman, what happened the day it began to rush. She looked at the floor. "The day I promised myself I would rest," she said, "and then did not." Elias nodded. He had seen that kind of injury before. It was not a crack in the metal. It was a crack in the story the owner told herself. He adjusted a tiny screw, not to slow the watch, but to return its rhythm to something the human wrist could recognize. "Time does not punish you," he said. "It mirrors the pace you secretly choose." The woman paid and left. The shop returned to its familiar quiet. Elias thought about honesty. A clock could be accurate and still be cruel, if accuracy meant measuring a life the person did not want to live. The next visitor was different. A boy came in with a clock that would not tick at all. The boy's coat was patched. His hands were clean, but his eyes were tired in a way childhood should not be. Elias asked, "Where did you find it?" "Under my uncle's bed," the boy whispered. After he left, Elias opened the case. The movement was intact, but the pendulum had been locked. Someone had stopped time on purpose, as if silence could freeze grief. Elias did not fix it immediately. He asked, "Do you want it to run again?" The boy hesitated. "If it runs," he said, "then he's really gone." Elias felt the weight of that sentence. He realized clocks were not only instruments. They were witnesses. Stopping them could be a kind of bargaining. He cleaned the oil, freed the pendulum, and set the beat slower than standard. Not because the boy needed lateness, but because tenderness sometimes looks like a gentler second. When the first tick returned, the boy flinched. Then he listened, and his shoulders dropped a fraction. Elias said, "You are not erasing him by letting the clock live. You are letting your days move again." Years passed. Elias grew older in the same shop. People brought him failures that were not mechanical. They brought jealousy that made watches gain time. They brought fear that made clocks lose minutes in the night. There was a merchant who wanted Elias to build a clock that would remind his rival of deadlines. Elias refused. "I repair time," he said, "I do not weaponize it." The merchant sneered. "Time is money." Elias replied, "Money can be counted. Time can only be lived. If you trade one for the other without noticing, you do not become rich. You become lost." One day, Elias noticed his own hands shaking. His eyes tired faster. He understood that his life was also a mechanism. Maintenance could only postpone, not cancel. He decided to teach. Not grand lectures, but small lessons at the workbench. He taught a young apprentice named Mara how to listen for the truth in a tick. He taught her that a lie in a clock is not always a broken tooth wheel. Sometimes it is a story told too loudly to hide fear. Mara asked once, "Is there such a thing as borrowed time?" Elias smiled. "All time is borrowed," he said. "The universe lends it to you without paperwork. The dignity is in how you spend the loan." He told her about the woman with the fast watch, about the boy with the silent clock. He told her that people often asked mechanics to fix what was actually a decision. On the day Elias could no longer see the smallest screws, he closed the shop early. He sat by the window and listened to the town. Somewhere, a church bell rang. Somewhere, a train asserted schedule. Somewhere, a kitchen timer clicked with ordinary hope. Mara found him there. She was afraid, because endings are frightening when you love a craft. Elias said, "Do not try to keep my hour for yourself. Hours are not savings accounts. They are water. Hold them too tight and they vanish from your palms." He gave her the shop key. He gave her permission to change what needed changing. He told her the only rule he had never broken: never promise a customer that time will fix what only courage can. When people asked Mara later what Elias had been like, she said, "He was a man who understood that clocks do not create time. They confess it. And if you listen closely in that town, even now, you can hear it. Not a miracle. Not a spectacle. Just a steady beat, honest enough to live beside." What this teaches us is simple and hard. You cannot hoard hours like coins. You can only choose what you do with the next one. Borrowed or not, it arrives the same way. Open-handed. Unlabeled. Yours to spend with intention, or to waste while pretending you will get a refund. The clockmaker's shop still stands. The sign is faded. The bell still rings when the door opens. And every tick, whether fast or slow, asks the same quiet question. What will you do with the hour you have? Travelers sometimes knocked, hoping for antiques. Mara learned to say no with grace. She sold time, not trinkets. A tourist once offered money for a clock that did not work. Mara refused. "Broken is not the same as worthless," she said. Broken is a conversation waiting to happen. She kept a jar of stray screws that did not belong to any single watch. Customers laughed at it. Mara called it her humility collection. "Every craftsperson needs a reminder," she said, "that not every piece you lose is a mistake. Sometimes it is a lesson." Years after Elias, Mara found a note he had tucked inside an old case. It was not sentimental. It was practical. It listed 3 questions he asked himself every morning before unlocking the door. 1. Did I treat someone's hurry as a problem to solve, or as a fear to hear? 2. Did I confuse precision with kindness? 3. If this were my last day of work, would I still polish the brass? Mara kept the note framed behind the counter, not as decoration, but as a compass. Customers sometimes asked what it meant. She said, "It means the shop is not selling clocks. It is selling attention." There were still nights when a watch arrived with a story too big for gears. A lawyer whose hands shook. A nurse whose alarm never matched her shift. Mara learned what Elias had learned. Repair is sometimes permission. Permission to stop pretending you can outrun your own life. Once, a teenager brought a smart watch, embarrassed. "It keeps buzzing," he said. Mara smiled. She could not fix the app. She could look him in the eye and say, "Tell me what you are afraid you will miss." He talked. He cried a little. The watch kept buzzing. But he left lighter, as if someone had removed a hidden weight not from the device, but from the sentence he lived inside. That is the part fairy tales sometimes skip. Not magic. Not perfection. A bench. A listening ear. A tick that matches a breath. So if you walk past a small shop and hear a steady beat, do not assume it is only metal. It might be a town's quiet agreement to keep time honest, one repair at a time. On snowy evenings, Mara lit one lamp and left the others off. She said darkness made the tick easier to hear. Apprentices copied the habit without understanding, then understood without words. Craft is partly theater, partly prayer. And if you carry a watch, remember. It does not own you. It does not judge you. It only asks, again and again, the same question Elias asked every morning. What will you do with the hour you have?